Hey everyone, we're about to start the show. We want to make sure that we let everyone know
It's no
it's showtime.
secret,
Broadcast now.
it's plain to see. I love you, and you love me. It's no secret,
Hey,
you know it's true.
broadcasting world here.
You love me, and I love you. The only time.
Hello. I'm Tammy Pescatelli. Welcome to 3 a.m. Friend. Tonight, we're going to have a lot of fun because I'm very excited for my guest, Craig. Can you guys all hear me? Craig Kilborn is trying to accept him right now. Craig. If you're there, just know that I'm trying to accept every single thing that you have sent over. Are
Can
you?
you hear me yet?
I can hear you. I
Can you see me?
I cannot see you yet. Let me see. I'm inviting you to video.
I'm going to accept that. Okay, I
Good.
just accepted that. There I am.
Hi,
Okay.
there you are. Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
doing this. I really appreciate this.
I'm a nice guy. What can I say?
You are a nice guy. You know what? So am I, quite frankly. I think I feel like I'm a nice guy anymore. This week, there's been a lot of talk about toxic masculinity in Hollywood and comedy. And I said, as a female comic, I think I had just as much toxic masculinity as anybody ever worked with because I think I needed it in order to get through. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what is happening in the world, but I know that for me, it all boils down to friendships. That's why you're all here. Being a 3 a.m. friend, someone who tells the truth at all times, that's there for their friends, is what this show is all about. And Craig I would say you've been a new acquaintance, and I've been having a lot of fun getting to know you on Ross's show. We have a lot in common, you and I. Number one, we both worked for the CBA. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I worked for the CBA. I was the lead choreographer from 92 to 94 for a long time. And then we have also played ourselves on television more than we've played any other roles.
Hmm. You do. I was stunned just talking to you a few times. You're very funny, obviously, but you know so much about the NBA. I was surprised.
Thanks. Well, I have to tell you, you had the job that I envied the most. I think I mentioned it. I always wanted to be a sports reporter growing up.
Mm.
I'm from Cleveland, and Jane Kennedy was from there. But my father had been a professional athlete, and he was a very old school guy. And he just was like, I don't want my daughter in the locker room. So that was an old school
Right.
mentality, but he probably wasn't wrong.
Do you remember? I'm sure you do. So I grew up in the Twin Cities. We moved there from the East Coast. We moved to Minnesota, but I was always into the NBA. My dad wanted us to play baseball, but we took to the NBA, and I used to listen to Joe Tate. We would get the signal 3WE.
No
Joe
way.
Tate. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, Hot Rod Williams. That was his favorite. He would go, Hot Rod Williams. And it was like
Yeah.
oh gosh, those were the days. Those Cleveland sports, I have to tell you, growing up with all of them, there was nothing like it. There was once a survey about like how many people are involved in sports over different cities. And sure, LA will have the Lakers, and now whatever football team shows up, and they're kind of a little farewell. Minnesota, love your Timberwolves. They're always with the Vikings. You couldn't stop them. The Vikings, even before they had the Dome Stadium, people went. Green Bay, those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yeah.
Cleveland is one of those cities, though, that's what families do until they
Yeah.
outpriced it. Until they used to be in fourth inning in baseball at the Indian Stadium, you could show up and get to go in. I mean, for free. So people would just wait till the fourth inning was over and then.
Right. I don't know if I asked you this or mentioned it on one of the other shows, but I also, because I got 3WE, the radio network, sports network from Cleveland, we got it up in Minnesota. Uh, Pete Franklin. Do you remember him or
I
not? Is
do
that before
remember.
your time?
Yes, no, I remember that. Listen, we used to get AM radios were the best thing in the world. You know what I mean? Because that's how you
Yeah.
listen to things. Sure.
So Pete Franklin was really entertaining sports talk radio, and I don't remember the kind of voice he had. It was kind of raspy, but he was funny but rude.
So rude.
And if he got a call from somebody who, like a teenager, he would get off the phone. So some guy he'd call up and go, "What's your question?" He goes, "Hey Pete, how come Bobby Bingo Smith isn't playing more? He's not playing a lot. How old are you, kid? 13. Go home and pick your face." And he'd hang up on him.
From my understanding, now I could be wrong, but from what I remember, Pete Franklin was the one who named my Browns. It was like 1978, I think, the Cardiac Kids. There was Brian Sipe was our
Oh.
quarterback, and because he said they gave them everybody a heart attack.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Very entertaining, Pete Franklin.
I think that's partially. I can't even speak. Partially why I think I'm a comedian, because it's okay to lose and laugh. You know, I mean, I think we still had a good time, even though our sports teams never really finished. And I mean, until whatever, was it 4 years ago? I think it's 4 years, maybe it's 5 years now. When the Cavs won, I cried. I'll never forget. My husband and my kid were looking at me like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "Because I've never seen this happen. This is like playing Monopoly to the end of the game. I have never,
Yeah,
this happened."
that was so cool. That was very cool. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough winning a championship, and then it's really tough. I actually, if you allow me, I'm going to name drop for a second.
Please.
And late night hosts and former late night hosts can name drop, but I met Larry Bird. He was shooting a commercial out in Burbank, and my friend was directing, and Larry was supposed to be talking to a friend, but there was no audio with Larry. It was audio with another table. So it was just a shot of Larry Bird having a beer with a guy, and I was the guy. So I just talked to him. I just interviewed him.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask him every question, because I'm a big Larry fan. But he said, this is a long way to get to somebody, but he was at the time the president GM of the Pacers, and he said it's just too hard in these small markets. We got to get rid of Paul George. He wants to go elsewhere, and it's hard. Thank goodness LeBron is from Akron
Yeah.
and wanted to play for Cleveland, because most of the time, a lot of people want to come to LA. Now, they play for the Lakers. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was on the Milwaukee Bucks, and then he went there. Wilt Chamberlain played center for the Lakers, and of course Shaquille O'Neal. But interestingly, this season, just because you're a big market, New York Knicks, LA Lakers, I think they're both missing the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think, what, it's a different time too, in the fact that they used to cover for them. Whatever their sins were, whatever. I mean, people knew the story of a certain Indians baseball player that would show up in his Lamborghini at the high school and drive around and pick up, like, things got covered up a little bit. I'm not saying that that's right, but people, when some famous high profile basketball player's mother kicked the back window out of a cop car, you didn't hear about that around the country. People knew
Right.
in Cleveland,
Right.
because it was easier to allow the golden boy to rise,
Right.
So I think those are the things that people forget too. Like, you get to these big cities, and we're also in a different time where all your stuff is out there in front of everyone. All of it. I mean,
Yeah.
no more so than right now when we talk about, like, I'll be honest with you, Craig, I'm not one of those people who gets into the accolades. I don't believe in blowing your own smoke up, for things. The Oscars were just never really my thing. I didn't care. I woke up Monday morning to a bunch of texts. The only reason that this story makes any sense to me, and the only reason I care, about the Will Smith slap and the Chris Rock, or the with the Chris Rock situation, is that as a comedian, I'm in the business of words. And I feel like words are all day long. You can say anything you want. If you can't match wits with me, or maybe I can't match wits with you, but you're not allowed to hit me over
Right.
words. You are prolifically one of the funniest and biggest sarcastic people that have ever been on television. Have you ever had someone try to step to you for a joke that you did?
You mean slap me? Is that what you said?
Any
Or
of
did you
it,
say
just step
no,
to you
no,
over it.
no, no? No. I mean, I don't watch the Oscars. The reason I found out is because there's certain guys on Twitter, sports guys in Minneapolis, and I was seeing if there's any new Vikings free agent signings, and one of the guys retweeted. He just goes, "Whoa! Like this just happened at the Oscars." So he was aware of it, and I was just looking at Minnesota sports. And then my wife was extremely upset. I was like, "This is utterly ridiculous." Will Smith was completely out of line, made a fool out of himself,
Yeah.
um, and Chris Rock handled it, I thought, extremely well. Uh, I mean, again, this is a hypothetical. I would not have handled it as well as he did. And I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you a story. When Will Smith, he does the slap, I have it's a pet peeve of mine when men are hotheads and they think they're tough.
Sure.
It makes me giggle. Like, you're not that tough. And it happened when he says, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. I mean, again, I say hypothetically because I'm not hosting the Oscars. I would have walked up to him and whispered, "Jada, Jada, Jada." I mean, I would have been obnoxious, but I actually did this once. I was playing basketball at Montana State, and we were playing Pepperdine.
Oh,
And there was this guy on the team named Grant Gondrzak, who was 6'5", 215. He actually played in the NBA. He was a starter on Pepperdine. And I come in off the bench. So I wasn't a starter, even though I should have been, but that's a whole other story.
hey.
And I'm trying to guard Grant, and I'm a little slow. I haven't warmed up. So I'm holding him a little bit away from the ball. The refs don't see it because it's away from the ball. I mean, he's cutting, and I'm kind of pushing and shoving. And then there's an out of bounds, and the ball's dead. And he looks at me and he says, "If you touch me again, I'm going to break your neck." This is in a game. So I immediately started caressing his arm. You know what I'm saying? So I go a little passive where I'm just caressing his arm, and he goes, "Hey, ref, number 43 is touching me." But it was one of those things where it makes me nauseous. The biggest issue I have in life are with men that are hotheads, men that are corrupt, men that are sneaky. And so I thought it was ridiculous. I saw actually some of your tweets. You were rightfully so very upset. Um, I don't. Thankfully, I never have done stand up. I never had a desire, although I used to go to the Comedy Store years ago and watch
It's hard
all
for
of
me to
that.
believe that. It's really hard. I mean, I believe you because why would you? But the level of timing that you have, and I'm not just saying this, like it's so
Well,
perfect.
thank you. Well, I'll give you there were people that wanted me to do stand up. I'll tell you, I enjoy some of these anecdotes.
Yeah.
So in the late '80s, I was living in LA. I used to go to the Comedy Store. I'm just going to give you some names, big names and other names. I used to see Argus Hamilton, Jackson Purdue, uh, a guy named Sam Kennison was there, Andrew Dice Clay. I mean, the big names were there as
Yeah.
well. Sam Kennison was unbelievable. I saw Jim Carrey before he did In Living Color. He was just doing impressions, or voices and contorting into David Bowie. It was great. And the reason I didn't, it's really not in my DNA to get up. I'm not that aggressive. And I remember someone said, Letterman didn't like doing stand up. He liked hosting the night. He liked hosting the night. And I wanted to host or do a sitcom or something. And some of the people said, don't do this because you want to do a sitcom. Do it because you want to be, the craft.
Hmm.
And some of the guys I liked, like Bill Murray, I was really into comedy, but I didn't have a strong desire to do stand up, but I contemplated it. The other one was this. You ever heard this one? it takes 5 years to get a good 20 minutes.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. So I have the proper admiration for comics, and I have a lot of friends that do stand up. And I had to host something. I had to be the MC at the Daily Show for the comics. On the writers on the show wanted to do a night of stand up at Catch a Rising Star, so I had to host that. And then I did a routine at the beginning, and it was very funny. It was basically me pretending it was my old routine from the '80s, and I was doing all these Scooby Doo jokes and Gilligan's Island jokes. But it was funny. But so I have the proper admiration. But my hero, guys, I was into Bill Murray, and he never did
Yeah.
stand up. So
Bill used to come down. Funny enough, I was very lucky to sit at the feet of Mitzi, literally and figuratively.
mhm.
Sometimes she'd want me to rub her feet. But Bill, it was so great. Those people would come down and see the respect that they had for the stage. I had no idea. When you grow up as a kid and you see funny people, you think that they all did stand up. Like, it's amazing that Bill didn't. It's amazing to me that you didn't. But the comedic timing cannot be denied. I think I was so incensed simply because this is how I make my living. I'm a
Mhm.
monologist.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. I am face to face every weekend. I leave tomorrow for Boston. I'm in Lincoln City, Oregon on the weekend. Like, I'm face to face with the people. And I've had my share. I don't know what it is. I think the stronger you get and the more I sit in myself on stage, the more it makes people who are nervous or not at peace with themselves, they go crazy. And every once in a while, like, someone will just whack out on my show like a whack-a-mole. I always kid and say they just get too old to strip. But I feel like I felt nervous. Like, if this is okay now, this becomes the norm. And we've seen it kind of trickle down, even you and I to talk about this as sports. Remember when Pop got choked? Do you remember? I'll never forget that one of the funniest, saddest things I ever saw was the when Larry Johnson and Patrick Ewing fought. Do you remember that? And
Oh
Coach
no, it was. Let me just. It was Alonzo Mourning,
Alonzo
and
Mourning, not
and
Larry
then and
Johnson.
then and then
Yeah.
Jeff Van Gundy held his leg. Is
Tell
that
them
what you're
like I'm a
trying to
chicken
stop the
hawk,
fight?
like
Right, right,
just like foghorn leghorn. I'm a
right,
chicken hawk. It was
right,
one of, but it's also now that's kind of the norm. Sometimes people want to see that. Now these
right.
people we talked about it on Ross's show. These hecklers that would show up to an NBA game, like
Yeah,
those tickets are six times the amount of my ticket for the most
right,
part, especially where those people are sitting that you can have
right.
them. Why people would want to do that? For me, I just wonder. You have been on TV your entire adult life. I mean, literally from Sports Center to the Daily Show.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it harder to deal with athletes and their personalities or celebrities and their personalities?
Well, let's see. I didn't when I did Sports Center. I didn't interview a lot of athletes. I just did the highlights and tried to write funny jokes. But
But they
the
saw you,
the
right?
yeah, yeah. Uh, Yeah, there wasn't there. I don't think there any real conflict there. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know on the Late Late Show on CBS, that's my favorite show, so that's the one I remember. And it's the one I did the longest for 5 years.
Yeah,
In anticipation, I was like concerned, like we tape, it's live to tape, so you can always stop.
sure.
Uh, it's and I always go to the worst place where just to be prepared. Like, what if some guest tries to get argumentative with you? And the good news, it never happened. The only thing I'm trying to think, there was one incident, and that wasn't much. I'm going to tell you about it. I don't think there was anything else. Some of the guests were rude backstage to my producers, and then they sit down and turn it on. And
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you off air the names of those people now, if you want. But here's the one that happened that was funny. The only incident was there was a guest that was drunk. We had a variety of guests, I'm going to save his name for the end, but
Okay,
it's
that sounds
he. I
good.
introduced him. I'll tell you. I introduced him, and he comes running out. Well, I got to tell you who it was. It was. Do you remember Robbie Knievel, Evil Knievel's
Evil's
son?
brother or son,
His
right?
son.
Okay,
His
yeah, yeah,
son.
yeah.
So I guess he wanted to have a grand entrance. He's drunk. He comes running out and he dives on my desk like belly flop and knocks everything over and then we just pick it up and we do the interview. But I guess he maybe he thought he was like a pro wrestling thing. He was trying to be dynamic, but that was pretty silly. And there were some other people that were very difficult to interview because they were spaced out. They were, but that was both men and women. They were just like Anna Nicole Smith was kind of floating. She
I
wasn't really
saw
answering
that.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was your show there that interview was one of the first ones where people realized there's something going on here with her. Like, cause she literally was, you were asked, kept trying to get her on point and she was kind of floating off.
yeah, yeah. And I said I'm working hard over here. I was looking at the audience, but she was just kind of breathing, and it was. I mean, at the time it was bizarre, but obviously it's sad in retrospect. But no, I haven't had. I'm sure the crowds that you have, people are drinking and they're rowdy, so it must be trickier for you.
Well, and I think, look, I think I always tried to. I was a novelty act. If you really think about it, early on in my career, there weren't a lot of women. I was a young woman. So sometimes I would say things that were a little bit more pointed. I remember what I said about Anna Nicole and her attorney tried to sue me. I said, I don't know why she chose to be dumb because the library was open for everybody. I'm like, I didn't have a special pass. It's not a
Right,
secret decoder ring. It's just called the library card, like no matter
right,
what. And he tried to sue me. So I think I've always I'm not a mean comic, but there's always been a little bit of animus, but I grew up that way. There's probably all those reasons that all these people go crazy are the reasons that I grabbed a microphone anyway, because I needed
right,
someone in my house to hear me because my brothers were, stronger, faster, louder. Everybody was talking over me. So I felt like if I could get a microphone, I could calm it down. Now, I do think going back to the Academy Awards, I do think that the whole situation, I thought it was going to be like I'm a huge Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise fan. I thought it was going to be like that. I think it probably could have started that way and he took it too far because he's such a method actor, Will did. But I think if Amy or Regina or Wanda, I know hindsight is 2020, but I would have come out and started smacking people. And I
uh,
think you could have lessened the blow of it. Just literally just came out and just started smacking people. Just
I
going,
think I think everyone was in shock, which they should have been,
yeah.
and probably the producers are just keep moving, don't draw too much attention to it. I assume because it was so ridiculous and awful that I just don't think I don't know.
Well, people
I,
have done crazy stuff. I had a woman throw a glass, shatter behind me, hit me in the head. I'm bleeding in front of 200 people, and then she stayed in her chair. So I think, and all of this relating to friendship, I have had a friend probably, I mean, literally since college. We don't participate in each other's lives all the time, but it was a very dear friend. And whenever we can see each other, we do. We have survived through different phases. I was out having my career when she was getting married and having kids and a little judgy over that. And then we had different political beliefs and we have different religious beliefs. None of that made a difference. But the fact that she thought that Will Smith was in his right to hit Chris, I was like,
right.
I'm done. I can't even
Yeah,
into it.
I disagree. So a couple things, and I'm not necessarily the right guy to talk to about friends because I'm proud of being an island. I was very close with my dad who's passed away. He lived to be 87, a long life, and then my brother who I'm still close with, and we're all entertaining in our own ways and verbal, but we don't seek out friends. So I don't but it's different because there's a sisterhood, and it's good to have friends. And I do have enough friends that I can chat with and run things by. But I I was going to say I have moved on from people the way you're talking about your friend. And
Hmm.
it's and I find it, and I look back and I find it very healthy. It's like, okay, that guy's irritating, or it's counterproductive, or I'm bored. And then I look back and I say, gosh, I don't even think those negative thoughts because the person's not in my life anymore. So I think it's a positive. But I might not be the right person to talk to because I don't know your friend, how long it's been. There's the forgiveness factor, etc.
Well, hang up now.
I,
Um,
but I disagree with her adamantly. And anyone who says he wasn't defending his wife, he was making a fool out of himself in front of his wife.
definitely. And I just, I think as friends, we do have to see other people's point of view. It's interesting to me that you say that you don't have a lot of close friends. I think as we get older, those things, I know a lot of people, as I'm sure you do, but there's very few people that you call. That's thus the name of this 3 a.m. friend in those situations, someone that'll really have your back. So I think that's the key. Someone could have talked to him. Your spouse, your partner should be your 3 a.m. friend to reach over and put your hand
Right.
on you and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you're almost to the finish line, man. Like,
Right. You know what's funny? When I read the description of the 3 a.m. friend, this was my reaction. So my wife, Princess Cherry, she's a giver, and that's the one person that will do anything for me, and I'll do anything for her, and that's enough. But my brother, I probably wouldn't bother him at 3 a.m. He's a software engineer. He's kind of aloof. He's in his own world. I'm in my own world, but his is different. And I just I would figure it out without bothering him at 3 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's a great guy, but meanwhile, my wife is the one that would be there in 2 seconds if I needed something.
that's awesome. I know my husband would be there for me if he would hear the phone. He doesn't always
Yeah,
answer the phone. So
right.
we're going to open it up to the audience if that's okay with you. Are you ready? Do you guys have any questions for Craig, for me? Do you want to talk about any of this? We're happy to. I'm going to bring you up. Let's see. I have someone right now that's requesting. This technology is always fun. So Chris Rossetti wrote to us, "What's a library?" That's hysterical.
Ah,
I know it's hard. I know millennials that you don't know what libraries are because you can Google things at all times, but the libraries are still here. And as a matter of fact, they're my meeting point in an apocalypse. I've told my
have
son
you?
he loves.
Right. Go ahead. I wanted
No,
to
no.
say
I
something.
just said if there's an apocalypse and just get to the town. If we get separated, just get to the local library. That's it. Just
Ah,
get to the library
that's
because.
smart.
Mm-hmm.
So my did I mention to you ever did I about one of my favorite places in the world is Carmel by the Sea, Carmel, California?
No, but
Did
I can see why. Sure.
so I used to when I worked in local TV in Salinas, Monterey, Santa Cruz, the 110 market as the markets are numbered. New York's one, LA is two.
Yeah.
Uh, that was the 110th market, but it was the most beautiful market. And I lived in Carmel, which was 30 minutes away from the station. And long story, so Carmel is my favorite place in the world. And um, I I just got a text from my wife. It's so funny. And I'm going to tell you what it
I thought
is.
you were going to say Clint Eastwood because you
No,
mentioned.
no, I know Clint, but I met Clint. I had dinner with him because my friend married him. But the Carmel Library, public library, is quaint and cute, and they follow me on Instagram. The Carmel Library, the public library. It's a beautiful building. It's like a Spanish building. It's great.
There's nothing, literally, Chris Rossetti, there is nothing like a library and the smell of the Dewey Decimal System in place right there and the index cards. You don't know. So we have a call from Jen O'Donnell. So Jen, I'm going to try to accept your request. Are you there, Jen?
Hi, Tammy. Hi, Craig.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to just say on behalf of millennials everywhere that I do volunteer for my local library. And if you love the library, social media advocacy for it is super important because they need money and help. So the millennials using the library are out there.
Good, good. It's so
Good.
true. I tell you this because I don't ever use it, but it was my first job. So now you don't know an answer to one of my questions, my password questions. But my first job I ever got was at a library, and I got first time I was ever fired because I used to wear my cheerleading uniform to go to work, and the librarian didn't like it. So what could I
Oh
do?
my,
I had to.
picturing you working in a library is so funny to me because I just like picturing you whispering. I would watch this show. I would watch this sitcom.
My mother used to kid that I became a comedian so I could read all day long. But you're right though. I do whisper like I'm in a helicopter. So,
I
so
think it'd be so funny. Well, thanks for letting me up and go library.
thanks, Jen. Thanks. Anybody else before Craig? I can't thank you enough for doing this. I mean, I really, really, really appreciate you. I just barely met you, and then I asked for a favor, so I appreciate it. You do
No
have
problem. I
friends.
think I was impressed early on. Funny and the NBA. That's a rare combo. I mean, in my world, for a woman to know the NBA as much as you do, that was pretty impressive.
I know a lot of useless information about the NBA. You know, the things that people these again. I'm a throwback. You know, so I'll never forget when George Gervin came to play for the CBA, played for the Quad City Thunder. I was going crazy. I was like, I got to get to the Quad Cities for that time that he was down there. People didn't know who the Iceman was. I was like, you're not allowed to play
Yeah.
basketball or come to a game if you don't know who the Iceman is. You know, so it's that
Loved,
kind of. I have.
loved the Iceman. Loved his poster. The Iceman cometh on the block of ice. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, definitely. You know, for those of us growing up, it just seeks an easier time. I mean, I think it was just a fun time, and sports really brings you together. Comedy makes people laugh, but sports can always, you feel it. I hope that people feel something when I'm on stage. I mean, that's my goal, that when you leave my show, you go, oh, I know what Tammy would say about this. So,
How often are you on the road doing stand up?
still a lot. Probably, something that's weird, more so now after the whole quarantine and everything, because now I feel I have to almost work twice as hard because venues are down. Um,
Yeah.
Attendance is down. So I'm now working. I had it pretty, I have a 14-year-old kid that I have to make sure I'm home for too. So I work a lot. I mean, I'm out at least 7 days a month with definitely, that's a lot when, I mean, people go 7 days a month, but you have travel surrounding that and it's weekends and everything else. So
Can I
definitely.
ask you? This was the text from my wife that showed up. Can I just ask you? This is a food question. Can I ask you a
Sure.
food question?
Absolutely.
Um, she texted Rayo's. We went to Rayo's the other night. There's a Rayo's Hollywood,
Yes. Love Rails.
and there's well, I guess there's one in Vegas, and the original obviously is in New York, and they sell their great pasta sauces. But when you go to an Italian restaurant, do you have what are your top three dishes that you like to order?
Well, I always, always, always get capellini. I love angel hair pasta. Always,
Hmm.
always. Sometimes I'll do the pasta pomodoro. Rayo's, I mean, you could eat anything at Rayo's. That was the one place that I ate because they're Sicilian and I'm Sicilian.
Yeah,
So it's a different type of sauce.
right.
Um, you know, I'm a big gnocchi fan.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I when I first had gnocchi, I liked it, but I don't order it. I'd like to tell you now the three dishes that I usually order.
please
Okay.
tell me.
And this is not limited to Rayo's, but usually when I go Italian. Okay. So I like veal marsala, veal scallopini. I like veal.
Okay.
Okay. I adore eggplant parm, and I usually get it more as an appetizer, not as an entree. I love
Not
eggplant
chicken
parm.
parm, eggplant parm. Okay.
What's that?
Not chicken parm, eggplant parm.
No, eggplant parm. Love it. And then I don't eat a lot of pasta with the carbs, but I do like linguine con vongole.
Oh, that's really good. For me, every time I travel for the longest time, people would always try to take me to Italian restaurants. I I didn't go to Italian restaurants because I ate Italian in the house. There was no,
Yeah,
but when I moved to Los Angeles, the one place I loved, and God rest Paulie Herman's soul too, because Paulie, I'd always go to Mastro's too. Rayo's and Mastro's had
yeah,
a good sauce.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those are good places. I just went there. I just was there on Saturday or Sunday night. I can't remember, and we're probably going to go again. and sat at the bar, and it was great. Love it.
It's awesome. Have a bite for me. Take a nice picture and tag me in it. I'd love it. I'd love it.
Absolutely.
I'll
Absolutely.
treat you and Princess Cherry to Rayo's next time I'm in LA. Okay.
That sounds good. You don't have to do that, but that's very nice. So we'll take you up
No,
on that.
absolutely. Thank you for doing this. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. Thank you guys all for tuning in. We'll see you in 2 weeks from now. Until then, just be somebody.